Welcome to SPS Extra, where we talk about all of the latest in Spokane Public Schools athletics and activities. I'm Taylor Brooks.
And I'm Stephanie Splater.
All right, we are talking non-traditional sports and extracurriculars on this episode. And as you know, Stephanie, of course, our district offers so much beyond just your traditional sports. This district, honestly, we have a sheet in front of us of after-school options, programs. It is galore. There are so many options for your kiddos at SPS.
There's a lot of work being done right now to make sure that we stay current with what kids want to do. And so that's always changing. That's always evolving. And we're figuring out ways. We have a cool work group going right now that has lots of different SPS stakeholders talking about how do we find out what kids want to do. But you're right, we already offer a ton, and we want to expand and build on that. So excited to hear about these different groups that we have featured today.
The thing about this episode is that we have a ton of interviews, and we thought it was just important to get out there and hear from advisors, teachers, students that are a part of these extracurriculars, because as much as we see it, especially Stephanie from the outside in, and she's in it all the time, these kiddos and these teachers, they're with these kids and these programs every single day. They're seeing it firsthand, what is going on.
So fantastic. And I'm excited too, because now that we're post-COVID and everything, kids are getting back out there and getting reconnected, but just that sense of belonging is so key. And we're just going to hear some different examples of how cool it is to be a part of school things that aren't during necessarily the school day, although some carry over. So we'll be talking about that too. Fantastic. So looking forward to it.
Yes, and our first interview will be with Henry Scheib. Like I mentioned, he's been at Scheib for a very long time, has been involved in so many different things. And when you look at his title on the website, it says Visual and Performing Arts Department Lead, which of course he is. But what you're about to hear is that he has done so much more for the Highlanders. I'm here at Scheib Park High School with Henry Scheib. He's been here for over 20 years and has done a plethora of things. So Henry, how about you explain to me what all you've done here at Scheib Park?
Just over 20 years ago, I was hired to teach some English and some theater classes and run the theater program. And I was handed off a wonderful theater program from the teacher before me and had great students to help me learn my new role as a theater teacher. And in the next several years, I added more and more theater classes, and I stopped teaching the English classes at Scheib, and I still do some of that online through SV. And I also have been the leadership teacher here for about 10 years. That was super fun. I took over, the principal at LC used to be here, Ivan Corley, and he had a great equity program when he was a teacher here called Hope. I took that over and I run some equity clubs and started a Black Student Union, worked with some awesome different groups, started a Gay Straight Alliance here with some of my students. So lots of different cool clubs and activities. I was in charge of the chess club for a long time. I was the head girls tennis coach for a little bit. So a little of this and a little of that. But my first contract I signed when I started working at Scheib was to be the theater teacher. So I've always tried to keep that as the number one priority and focus on that, because I feel like that was the job I signed up for when I came to the district. So first and foremost, my job is to help students learn how to tell story together. And that's what we do in theater, is tell story.
What drives you? You just listed all of those things off, and you've been doing this obviously for so long. What drives you when it comes to being a part of these kids' lives?
I find over the past 20 years, like we're trying to recover, trying to get out of this COVID fog where we weren't quite sure how the things like performing arts were going to function as are some of the other activities like sports and all the clubs, trying to figure out how to get re-engagement and get ourselves back into cool group work and kids working together with good teachers. And it was, and what's driven me right now is just trying to make sure, seeing the kids make connections with other students. When I was a younger teacher, I thought it was really cool that the kids connected with me, and we had this great environment. Like, oh yeah, Mr. Scheib, he's one of my favorite teachers, or oh, you're one of my favorite kids. And as I matured in my career, I realized that having them have connections with one another was way more powerful. They get to interact with 100 other kids a day, not just the one teacher. So I feel like what keeps me going is trying to balance my connection with kids, but also providing them the opportunity through the arts to connect with one another. And that's pretty cool, because the movie in the 80s called The Breakfast Club. When you take all the different flavors of kids and mix them all up, that's every theater class, whether you're at LC, Ferris, NC, Rogers, Shadle, we all take a variety of kids, throw them together, and produce awesome shows.
That's such a great point and a great perspective of their connections. You know, some of them will be friends the rest of their lives. Some of them, this is just kind of a chapter for them. But you have a unique way of getting to see them on stage and see them interact in that way. So take me through theater and how you see these kids connecting and creating relationships, and especially on the stage, because that's a big deal.
Well, so many people have this fear to do public speaking. And I have several students. I have a student on Broadway right now. I have a student that was producers. There's a young man who's been in some Super Bowl commercials, and he lives down in Texas. We have some great success stories, as does every program in Spokane School District. We all are really proud of our programs, both with the academics, with the extracurriculars, and we do great work. This summer, this kiddo who graduated from Shadle 15, 16 years ago, my wife and myself, it was funny, we get a text, and she's like, "Hey, it's me. I'm outside your house right now, and I haven't been in the country for about 10 years because she's been living in New Zealand, and I have all the theater kids with me." And my wife goes screaming down, opens the door, "Get in here!" And all these 30-year-olds are hanging out with us, and we stayed up all night. It was hilarious. Whichever high school you go to, whether it's like some of the high schools here take them to state nationals, and some of the kids with me have gone to like London and Paris, and we all do our fun activities, whichever high school you're at. But these kids just telling the stories of the first time we were in New York together, and then another kiddo going, "Yeah, but what about the time we were in Barcelona after we left London?" And just all the stories they have. And it was cool because these connections were made all starting on Shadle stage, and getting over the fear of being vulnerable. Auditioning, saying, "I would like to be in a play." That's scary. And having the guts to say, "I want a spotlight on me and I want to talk." I kind of feel like it's like the guy who wants to play shortstop or the gal who wants to play shortstop. And they're like, "Hey, coach, I'm going to be the shortstop," meaning I'm going to stop the ball. I'm going to be good to go. And that's a really gutsy move. And I feel like the kids who want to be in theater and have the guts to say, "Put me in as the lead."
You just said that perfectly, that this is such a great opportunity for kids to be vulnerable and be in the spotlight, because public speaking is so scary. It can be so scary. What have you told kids throughout the years to let those nerves go and to just be themselves on stage and be that character and really just engulf themselves in this experience? Because I'm sure you've given out some really great advice over the years.
Every year the kids try and find a stupid quote I say and put it on the sweatshirt. And like one year a kiddo comes out and their costume was perfect. It was the ugliest costume in the world. I'm like, "That's hideous. I love it." And that ended up on the sweatshirt. "That's hideous. I love it." But it was perfect for the costume. I always think it's really interesting to try and help the students overcome their own fears. And I tell them the difference between an okay high school play where you're up there reciting lines and when you step into really acting is when you have your lines memorized, you're good to go, you know how to project, you know how to stand, you know the blocking, and you let all that go and you find a way to be present in the moment. And you'll hear great actors always talk about this. You're in the moment, listening and reacting. And you're not saying your line because you memorized it. You're saying your line because your character is driven to say that line. What's so neat watching students reach that maturity in their acting, even though they're high school kids. They're very young and inexperienced, and they don't have a ton of – our students have a lot of life experiences, but they're still under 18 or 15. They don't have what a seasoned actor would draw on lots of life experiences to help them understand emotions, and sometimes the students have to dig a little deeper and find ways to connect with their characters, and it's beautiful watching them develop a character. The other thing that's super beautiful is watching them relax after the first night. They've accomplished the play. The jitters were out there. Normally the first play is really good because everyone's so on edge, but the second or third or fourth night, when they settle into their character and really have a mature performance, that's really neat too.
Yeah, I actually went to a few different productions and just like did the behind the scene and saw the behind the scene work. And I think that's something that people don't understand of how much an actual production this is. There's so many moving parts. There's so many kids involved. How important is just every piece to the puzzle to make a production go as smoothly as we see it in the audience. Things might be going on crazy in the back, but from out here, we're looking at it and we're so impressed.
We have the ability to have production mistakes where something goes wrong, but only the people in the production know. And it's a performance mistake if the audience goes, oh no, what's going wrong? And if we stress our audience out like something's going wrong, I feel like that is a catastrophe. That's a fail, because your audience should never know something wasn't planned. So we have a Career in Technical Education, CTE. All of the 5 theater teachers in the 5 comprehensive high schools in Spokane will also have a stagecraft class, as you saw and you were observing. I know you went to a couple of the schools and got to see the behind the scenes at NC and LC and a couple other schools. My stage crew kiddos run this place. I have a crew chief, and he or they, depending on the year, will assign a different group of kids to run the lights, run the follow spots, costume, do the makeup, and they run it. And the older kids teach the younger kids. They kind of hand it down as a tradition. There's always the crew chief, and they have so much ownership over the space. I mean, they run the faculty meeting. If there's a PowerPoint, they'll come to that. But with my kids in the theater, whenever any of those activities bounce into the theater, my kids facilitate that, my students. It's amazing. It feels such a connection to the stage. We were remodeled in 2009, but the basement of our theater was never remodeled, and it still has the graffiti from years and years of kids who run the stage crew. They'd paint their name on the wall, and the earliest names I can find are my second cousins, Jim and Jerry Cyber, written down there. And I know my mother went to Gonzaga U in the 60s, and they would rent the theater at Scheib because the theater at Gonzaga wouldn't hold as many people. So my mom's acted on the stage. My cousins have put their name on the wall in the basement, and I just feel like this place is part of who I am, and it's really neat. But it's that way for a lot of our students.
So fun. Now, this is the $1 million question, especially being the podcast that we are talking about extracurriculars. Why do you think it's so important for kids to be involved in whatever aspect that might be in high school, middle school, elementary school? Why is it important for these kids to be involved?
There's so many things that we do as citizens of our world. And I think the most important thing to do is lean into your community. And in high school, junior high school, middle school, all of the school activities you do help you learn how to lean into your community. I do not care if any of my students become professional actors. I care that they get involved, volunteer, they're in a play, or they help build sets. Someday they might be a pharmacist, but they could still go down to the Civic Theater and get involved, whether it's building sets or facilitating something or acting. It's super important to be involved. And whether you join the Flying Irish Running Club, whether you're doing Lilac Parade, or you're helping out and volunteering at Bloomsday, or you're running Bloomsday, or you're working in an aid station, whether you're up at Mount Spokane trying to learn how to clear trail and volunteer at the state park, it's just so important to be part of the community in which you live, because it gives you a better understanding of the people with whom you're living. I think everyone should have a favorite sport, a favorite activity, a favorite poet, know the right music to listen to for you that makes you feel good, just know how to make a nice risotto and know how to travel. I just think that being involved in things helps you be a better citizen of this world, better family member, better employer, better employee, better partner for your partner. It's just to say yes to the dress and get involved in as many activities as you can and find out which ones help you be the best version of you.
Welcome back to SPS Extra. Henry Scheib, he's so refreshing. We could have talked for probably 8 hours, the whole entire school day.
He could do his own podcast.
Honestly,
the whole thing.
I'm kind of surprised he doesn't.
I was listening to it in the car, and I turned it down, and the lady at Starbucks said, "Who is that? Is that NPR?" I said, "No, that's Henry."
Henry's going to
everything.
He's going to love that
He's got a
compliment.
great voice for it.
Oh, he does. I think that the things that he was saying about what theater does for kids, it gets them out of their comfort zones. Vulnerability. I mean, you have to, obviously you're acting on stage, but you're taking what you know and the realness of your life, I feel like, and putting it into your character and molding it into that character, of course.
I know I was at Ferris last fall for a parent meeting one morning, like Saturday morning, and it was early October, and I saw these kids in the hallway painting the most awesome thing, and I was like, what is that? Like, it had some purple, teal, metallic. What is happening? You know what was happening? Little Mermaid theater production, preparations. So fantastic. And then 2 months later, so full on 2 months later, there's the production and there's that mermaid. They were painting in the hallway on a Saturday morning. I just thought that was so cool.
Yeah, I think the other thing we have to think about too is this doesn't only apply to theater. It applies to every kid who's in an extracurricular or something extra. Like, it is extra. They are choosing to go to the school on a Saturday morning and finish the mermaid costume or the Ursula costume or whatever it may be. Whenever I talk to kids and I interview kids in this job, you are just so impressed by them.
Yeah.
You're impressed by every single one of them because they are involved in so much.
I think with what Henry said about teaching them how to be citizens of the world.
Yeah.
Like, that's a lot. And if you heard that, you thought, oh my goodness. But you know what? When I heard that, I thought he's exactly right.
Yes.
Because they're learning so many things and applying so many cool experiences to things they'll carry on later in life. And I also was thinking about when he was describing all the different kids that are involved in theater at Scheib and all the other programs that he's involved in. I thought back to when I was a track coach. In early March, our second week of practice, we always had girls on my team leave because they were part of the theater production.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? Go for it. I mean, at the time, I was always like, oh, no, they're going to miss practice.
Right.
But then to see that well-rounded, and they were committed. They were committed to the track team, committed to their theater group. But at the same time, they were learning so many different things. And I just thought that was really cool. And so when I was driving home a couple weeks ago, I saw the LC theater production advertised second week in March. And I thought, there we go. That's awesome. And I just sort of appreciated what Henry was talking about with kids being involved in different things.
All right, we're going to take a quick break here on SPS Extra. We'll be right back. We've mentioned it a few times on our episodes, but esports is really exploding across the country, the world even. And at Spokane Public Schools, currently there are 2 esports teams, one at Rogers, one at New Tech Prep. Hopefully we add some in the future. And we sat down with Keith Oso. He's the advisor for New Tech Prep's esports. And you might be familiar with his name because he is a longtime former sportscaster for KXLY, and you're going to love this interview. All right, I'm here at New Tech Prep with Keith Oso, a old and amazing friend of mine in the TV news business. Keith, how about you tell us and tell everyone what you do here at New Tech Prep and for the district?
Got the amazing opportunity this year to switch careers and come into teaching. And I'm here at New Tech where they have animation special effects, which is a really fancy way of saying we teach video production. So we teach a little bit of animation, but mostly like video production. And we do have some special effects, and we do animate some fonts and graphics and things like that. For the most part, though, we're teaching kids how to build a career in the world of video, which, of course, then we get into animation near the end of the year. But as you know, that is like step 150, and we had to teach as steps 3, 4, 5 before we get to 150. So really, really happy with where the kids are. Didn't expect them to be able to pick things up as fast as they did. So we are actually further today than I thought we'd be by the end of the year. So I'm very encouraged by that. Just a super, super group of kids. I got 2 classes, like 3 hours each. And yeah, just they get along well. We've got a really good community here. Kids that want to be part of something, and it's been fun. After school, which is, I know is why we're here, one of the things that drew me to this job is that we have an esports team here. And yeah, it sounds like just a bunch of kids getting together and playing video games, and it's exactly that. So it's interesting. I had to learn some games I've never heard of or played before, and they've been very patient with me. We've got a solid core group of about 7 or 8 kids here that are here almost every day, from Tuesday to Thursday after school for a couple hours, and then another hour on days where we have matches. But yeah, we get together, we have fun, we get along just like any other team. Like the camaraderie is the same as a baseball team or a volleyball team or a soccer team. A lot of people giving each other a hard time, but it's a safe place for them to be, and it's an environment that they appear to enjoy, because I think they keep coming back, so they must. But yeah, we give each other a pretty hard time, mostly them toward me, but that's okay. And yeah, I feel like they've built some friendships that will last far beyond this school year.
Which is what you want, of course, out of high school, which is so special. So for someone who doesn't understand, especially the competitive side of esports, you guys do compete. You mentioned matches. Explain that to us.
Yeah, it's a lot bigger than I thought. We are not part of the WIAA. They discussed that this year, but it's part of a different inter-school league. That there's 25 schools across the state that are in there. Rogers is in our league. I think Chewelah is another local team. Most of our teams are on the west side of the state or central part of the state. Like big schools like Lake Stevens, Rainier Beach, like the big schools that you expect to see at any athletic championships. We kind of had to take our lumps in the fall a little bit. So how it works is we've got one guy in charge basically of the league that he pretends like it's a multi-person thing, but he takes a lot on himself. And he arranges everything, schedules everything, so you know who you're playing every week before you get there. You could look at the schedule for the whole year. But the way it works, so like in the fall, we played Valorant, we played Rocket League, and we played Smash Bros. Okay, I'd heard of Smash Bros. I had never played Valorant or Rocket League. So I had to learn those games. I suck something fierce at them, so I get made fun of. I got better at Rocket League, but Valorant's not my game. But the beautiful thing about this is, so you know you're going to play, every week you're going to play the same game every day, or on Tuesdays, on Wednesdays, on Thursdays. In the spring, we have League of Legends, we have Overwatch 2, and we have Smash Bros. Unfortunately, we didn't have enough people for Smash Bros. The way that it's set up, so we actually stopped that. But the rest of the schools are continuing with that. We have learned League of Legends on the fly. We're learning Overwatch 2 on the fly, but we actually did decently in our Overwatch 2 exhibition. We actually won pretty handily our League of Legends. So good to see them get rewarded, because we did a lot to learn these games instead of just play. We learned the strategies, we've learned the characters, we've learned the communication, we've learned I'd never played League of Legends before, and now I'm playing it almost every day because I want to be able to help them. But the competitive part, so we'll play League of Legends every Tuesday, we'll play Overwatch every Wednesday, and we'll know who we're playing. And so then the day of the game, the day before, I reach out, or the other coach will reach out. We'll make sure everything's good. There's a website we log into. We can chat together. We set up a room. We invite the other team. We get on and we play remotely. Now, this spring, for the first time since COVID, the playoffs will be in person on the west side of the state. So I'm using that as motivation that hopefully we can do well enough in one of the two games to get to the playoffs so we can travel together and have a road trip, have fun, have a reward for a year of putting up with me. So it would be awesome, and then we could document it, and we could use it as recruiting in the future. Like, it's just kind of trying to build a program, right? And but yeah, that's how the matches go. We were one game out of the playoffs in Smash in the fall. We were one game out of the playoffs for Valor in the fall. So if we can be one game better at one of these games, which I think League of Legends we have a chance to be, then we'd get to have that reward. It'd be pretty cool.
When they think of esports, they don't think of it, it's like a team. It's a team game and all that, like traditional sports. Can you explain the team aspect of this and how you have to work together in order to win?
It's why I wanted to do this.
Yeah.
It's video games. Okay, you're sitting at a computer screen. It's not physically exhausting. But if you don't communicate in one of these games, you're done. Period. And it's not communicating meaning everybody talking at the same time. It means knowing when you're supposed to say something. It means knowing who's kind of in charge of the team when you're playing. It means how to talk respectfully, how to engage with somebody that's completely different than we are. We have such different levels of player here. We have people that have been playing for a long time. We have people that learned when I did, like a couple months ago. Are we speaking respectfully to each other? Are we getting along? Is there accountability? If I don't show up to practice today, our team doesn't get better. If I don't communicate with my team that, hey, I'm going to be a little bit late, then they may think that there's not enough people to play that day, whatever it may be. So you have communication, you have accountability. The strategy and the game planning is the difference maker, especially in a game like League of Legends, which we learned together. We all started at ground zero basically, and now we go and play 5-on-5 randoms in online, and we win a majority of the time. We got better, and it was fun to watch us get better because of the research we were doing and the strategy that we were learning. It's a complete team thing. Even in the way that they've established Smash for the spring, it's 5v5, 1v1 at the same time. So it's best 3 out of 5, individual one-on-one, but if I lose, I'm letting the team down kind of feel to it. It's like wrestling. Yeah, it's an individual sport, but it's a team sport as well. Baseball, it's a team sport, but when I'm hitting, it's one-on-one, right? So it still has that kind of different feel to it, as the other 2 games are literally 5-on-5. We all go at the same time. So, way more team aspect than people may be aware of. And I don't care if we don't win a match. What I care is they learn how to be around people that are completely different than they are and have a common goal and work together and improve and see some success from it, right? They've already seen success because of how much better they are. If they can win a couple games along the way, great. If they can make the playoffs and we get to take a road trip, great. But that's not the focus of our team. Maybe in the future, once we build it a certain way, that it'll be a little bit more serious. But we're playing video games. It's supposed to be fun. So that's what we try to do.
I mean, you just mentioned all the things, all the qualities of extracurriculars. And that's why we have them. That's why we have them as a district. That's why each school, each program tries to bring kids together who are like-minded in whatever that may be. From just being on this side of it now, and obviously we have our traditional sports, like we said, we have our non-traditional things too, and extracurriculars. What's it like for you to be on this side now instead of the one reporting on this stuff, for example, and being on the TV and hashing out highlights and telling feature stories from the sports perspective? What's it like for you to be on this side now? Because from my perspective, of course it's been different, but it's been a fun different.
The beautiful part for me is seeing what it's supposed to be about, right? Yeah. What it's supposed to be about is that kids have a safe place to be after school. And the kids have a way to connect with other students outside of the classroom, hence the word extracurricular. We do hold our kids to they have to have a C or better to play. It is extracurricular. Now, I grew up playing sports and excelling and not caring about the curricular part. I have obviously a much different view now that I'm on this side. So to me, it's the teacher side that's more interesting than the sport or esports side, because I've always been, even as a reporter, you go to practice and you're still watching how they coach. You're still watching how they play. You're still kind of involved, even though you're reporting on it, you still see how things work. I think the fun part is, and when you came out and you interviewed my kids, okay, these are kids that have never been in front of a camera before. These are kids that have never gotten attention for something like this before. I had zero interest in being on camera for that. I've been on TV enough, okay? and luckily you and I, we didn't even have to talk about it. We both understood this is about the kids, and you understood that. Yeah. I understood that. And the reason why we're doing this is because we do have cool kids here.
Yes.
And we do have kids that deserve attention, okay? Mm-hmm. My Aunt Chris is who started this. She started this club last year or 2 years ago. And it was part of the selling point for me to come here. And she still helps me. She's still in there with me. And how many times we've said, God, I love these kids. It's a ton, because we love watching them interact. They're just goofy. They're fun. They are what we want representing New Tech, because they're good students too. It's what we're looking for. And it's the reward is already there for us. Okay, for like you said, on this side of it, I have an appreciation for what coaches do. I know they get paid sometimes, but I know it's not a lot. And I know how much I'm at home trying to get my kids better without them knowing it. I can only imagine the level that is in a physical sport.
Right.
Okay, I can imagine that they're on the, how can I get this kid better? How can I get this kid to succeed? What am I doing wrong? And I know as teachers and as coaches, we take that upon ourselves. And so it's not that the kid is failing, it's how can I get that kid to succeed, right? Mm-hmm. And so if you're watching your kid play or you're watching somebody's kid play and you're frustrated with what the coach is doing, you don't see what they go through at night, okay? You don't see that they're at home trying to figure out how to get that kid better, okay? They're losing sleep over it, I can promise you that. It's the same in the classroom. You go home at night like, what can I do to make this kid better, right? And then I get mad that, and I use this word and I sound like my parents, is why do I care more about this than you do? You know, but we do, we do. And I think in the sports world and the esports for us here at New Tech, it's about building people, and we teach you sports or esports along the way. I think that when it's done right, that's what high school sports is. I think that's what youth sports should be.
I told Keith at the end of that interview, he was apologizing for being long-winded, and I said, it's not long-winded, you're just intelligent, and you know how to talk because you were a sportscaster for 30 years, 25 plus years.
Passionate about what he's doing now. That's so awesome.
It's been the theme of this episode of, yes, these are extracurriculars, these are sports, these are incredible. It teaches life lessons. That's the thing, though. It teaches life lessons. And Keith, he said at the end, it's about building people. We teach sports and esports along the way. And that really struck me. And I just think it's so true. It doesn't matter what these kids are doing or what sport they might be in or what extracurricular they might be in. They are building for their future. They're becoming who eventually they will be in the real world. And I just think that's really important. And Keith really talked to that with esports and just his kids in general and his classes at New Tech. And I don't know, it's really, really cool to see.
For sure. And he mentioned the team aspect, which is super key because no matter what you do, I mean, unless you're going to work on a deserted island by yourself, you're going to work in a team at some point.
Right.
And so that was something that stuck out to me about what he said. And then I also remember an article I read a couple years ago in one of our local magazines, one of the Inlander magazines, that just talked about, I think we might have mentioned in a previous episode, that the social emotional connection during esports is more than just sitting by yourself playing video games.
Truly.
And that's fine too. And we know throughout the last 15 plus years or so that people can connect that way because of the it's not just sitting by yourself. Sometimes you're playing somebody in North Carolina.
Exactly.
Or sometimes you're, getting with a group of friends, but you're not all in the same place. But I think this all ties back to that sense of belonging and connectedness.
Right.
And this is just a different way. I know every time I mention esports to some of my colleagues, they're like, oh, wow, video games that are sports. And I'm like, yeah, at the base it is. But then, listen to Keith and the kids that he has participating in the Rogers esports athletes that are so into it. And I just think this is something super cool and for us to expand on moving forward.
I think so too. And really cool that they're bringing back in-person playoffs because right now they're just playing virtually, which makes sense. But I think that will add a whole different layer to it for these kiddos, hoping that Rogers and New Tech Prep both qualify for the playoffs. So we talk about esports, where esports is still up and coming, at least for our district, which is super exciting. But something that has been around for a long time has been Cyber Patriots and ROTC. Both incredible programs, a lot of involvement with our kiddos across the district, especially at Rogers. And here's what those kiddos had to say about both Cyber Patriots and the ROTC program at Rogers. All right, our next interview is at Rogers High School. I've got two amazing students here at Rogers, so I'm going to have you guys introduce yourselves, what year you are here at Rogers, and what all you do here at Rogers.
My name is Talon Santiago, and I'm a junior here, and I do color guard, drill, Cyber Patriots, rifle spinning, honor guard, and flight school.
Hi, I am Jonathan. I am a senior here at Rogers, and I do color guard, honor guard, Skills USA, Cyber Patriot, drill and ceremonies, and a little bit of rifle spinning.
Obviously, you guys listed off a lot of things. So first, I just would love to know how you guys got interested specifically in ROTC, and then I feel like everything else kind of probably came to fruition for you guys. What interested you guys in that first?
I first joined ROTC halfway through my freshman year because I was very interested in becoming a pilot, and they told me that they had a lot of resources here that would help me achieve that.
I joined because I knew people in the program, and I also was aspiring to be a pilot after completing Air Force Academy.
This is probably a hard question, but out of all the things you guys just listed, all of your extracurriculars, things you're involved in, do you have a favorite and why?
My favorite is flight school because I literally get to fly planes, and that's never an opportunity I would have had if I didn't have flight school.
My favorite one would be drill and ceremonies. I spent 4 years in the program, so I know quite a bit about it.
So like I just mentioned, heard through the grapevine that you did just complete your first flight. Tell me about that experience and how incredible that was for you.
It was very freeing. You're just very controlled in the air, and you just kind of forget about everything else. When you're up there, you're solely focused on flying, which is something I don't get a lot when I'm doing all my extracurriculars and schoolwork.
When you went through this process and going through this process right now, can you explain how much hard work and concentration, sweat, I'm sure, tears, all the good things? Take me through that.
I do advise people younger than me to not take on as much as I do because I have experienced how strenuous it can be on you mentally and physically. But if you just manage your time well and have your priorities straight, then it's pretty easy to do some of the things you thought you couldn't.
You just made a great point. That is setting your priorities straight. And when you think of the Air Force and being in the military, you do have to have your priorities straight. You are literally serving your country and your people every single day, even at the level that you guys are at in high school. Jonathan, can you speak to that and just how dedicated you do have to be with not only everything you've done, but ROTC especially?
Dedication-wise comes a lot from time. We have to wake up and be at school at 6:15 for color guard. At 6:45 begins drill and ceremonies. Go through your school day if it's a Cyber Patriot day from 2:30 to 5.
For people who don't understand what Cyber Patriots is, please explain.
Cyber Patriot is a competition in which cadets will, or non-cadets, will engage in fixing a computer of technical issues that could be from password policies to viruses that you have to take care of.
It's so impressive. I mean, you guys are both so impressive. But to bring out the female aspect of this, being a female pilot, being a female who wants to go into the Air Force Academy, that's powerful. What emotions go through you knowing that there are not very many and more are getting interested? And it's because of people like you, because you're inspiring young girls to do what you're doing.
There's definitely a lot of pressure to fully go through with the whole pilot thing and just making it not seem like a joke. I'm taking it very seriously now. And a lot of people have talked to me about being a female and a pilot, and going through the course with my sister has helped a lot because she is very smart. She helps me with my studies, if I'm going to be honest.
Yeah. How cool has that been to have her literally right next to your side?
It's amazing to have her there and just have a shared experience with her, because we shared almost all of our experiences, and that's something that's made us really close and I think is bringing us even closer. So it's just nice to have that when you go home too, and she can just relate to the frustration and the tiredness of just reading and reading and reading.
What does the rest of this year look like? How many flights have you done so far? and what now do you do moving forward?
So in our program, you have to pass one of your tests to earn a flight. And so far I've done my first flight and I passed the test and I've earned my second flight. And then if I pass my third test, then I get more flight time.
What advice would you give students if they were nervous about joining ROTC or even joining any of the things that you guys are involved in? What advice would you give a student who might be a little bit hesitant?
You have 4 years at high school to either find your passion or get involved with your passions. Most things come at free cost in Spokane Public School. So if you can't find something you enjoy, try things until you find what you enjoy. And when you get something you enjoy, keep with that, because you're only going to have so many times where hobbies are free.
Cyber Patriots for me is something very new. Before I started with the district, I had no idea what Cyber Patriots was. But now, obviously, I do know. And what a cool, different way to compete.
Right. And protect. Something that unfortunately we're going to be experiencing forever is
Yes.
that we may be attacked with technology. And thank goodness there's these cyber patriots out
Yeah.
there who are going to stand their ground and keep us all safe.
Exactly. Keep us all safe. And I always just imagine like these kids one day will work for these incredible, amazing companies that, whether that has to do with cybersecurity or whatever it may be, whatever path they take, ROTC, all that. My husband's in the Air Force himself. Whatever it might be, they're intelligent, they're incredible kids, and they are making a future for themselves still at the high school level.
In this work group that I mentioned earlier, we're working on, what's the best way to gather student voice? And that's with students talking to each other and talking to the people who can make it happen.
Yeah.
So that's like focus groups are awesome. Like never mind a survey. Everybody is done with surveys. Surveys
Yes.
is too much. The greatest thing is when a student approaches an adult who can make it happen.
Yeah.
Or when they get together with their friends or anyone else who's interested and just says, okay, we want to get together and we want to work on this.
Yeah.
So I think that's the best way, and we're going to continue to explore ways to support and talking about that in the future, even more activities. We could do like 8 of these podcasts about different activities.
Honestly, the picking who to interview was hard for us because we could have interviewed every single person in club and whatever it may be. But we love all extracurriculars. We love all sport. We love all non-traditionals. It really has been cool to be able to dive into this. And our next episode, Stephanie, episode 4, we're going to dive into spring sports. Spokane weather in the spring is really awesome. Every spring sport athlete and
then it
coach
hits
can
you in
attest.
May, like full on summer. Like then you're shocked, and then everyone gets sunburned.
I was just going to say
It's
sunburn.
mid-May.
Really
It gets crazy.
awesome
Yeah.
suntan lines
Yeah.
for sure. It'll be fun to explore spring sports across the district, but also talk about the launch of summer programs because you might not believe it, but we're not too far off from that summertime, everybody. All right. It's always been fun. It's always fun with you, Stephanie.
Of course.
Great time.
Absolutely.
And remember to follow us at Spokane Schools on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn if you're into that. And of course, we will see you guys next time.